Hello, and welcome to my latest talk on Roman archaeology. As a slight deviation on my talks on Roman roads in Britain, I would like to talk about amphitheatres. This talk was inspired by a video by Paul Whitewick, who did a video linked in my description about looking for the missing Winchester amphitheatre. I thought that this was a very interesting question, as finding large structures like this is what LiDAR is particularly good at. While I didn't find anything at Winchester, there are more new discoveries to be made around the country. So what is an amphitheatre? Well, first, if we start with a Roman theatre, we have a semicircle of seats facing a stage. If we remove the stage and mirror the seats, our theatre becomes an amphitheatre, with the action happening in the space between the two rows of seats. If the amphitheatre is particularly well preserved or has been excavated to expose the structure of it, that's exactly what we see. Here are some nice examples which are all situated a short distance from a Roman town. The major towns tend to be where most of the known amphitheatres are located, with a few notable exceptions. They tend to be located outside of town, except where the settlement is particularly large, such as in London. These fine examples are all well and good, but we are looking for something a bit more subtle, where the structure is less well preserved and excavation has not exposed the structure for the public to visit. These examples show a range of poorer preservation. Richborough is well preserved but unexcavated, Chichester is partially built upon, Aldborough is partially ploughed away, and Wroxeter is almost completely ploughed away. This gives us a bit more of an idea of what we are looking for on the LiDAR. Before we go looking for something new, I'd like to look a bit more closely at the Chichester Amphitheatre, as I've actually done some geophysics on this site, a ground-penetrating radar survey. So on the surface you can see a donut-shaped earthwork. Earth is the operative word here, as there is not much decent building stone in the region of Chichester. So the bulk of the structure is a big pile of earth. If we look at the profile across the earthwork, you can see it's nearly 2 meters high, 65 meters across, and the centre is actually higher than the ground outside the earthwork. In this case, that's because the earthwork has slumps inwards, but it is very important to note that they have not dug out the centre to build the bank. The material for the earthwork has been brought in from elsewhere. Early excavations found evidence of an inner revetment to keep that mass of earth at bay. Here is a single time slice from the radar survey, which shows some of the structure of the earthwork and also a room built into the west side of the north entrance. Most importantly for this study, it showed that the original floor of the amphitheatre was intact, as well as a metal track leading into the northern entrance from the outside. By using the current absolute height of the ground at 0.1 outside of the structure and 0.2 in the centre of the structure, as well as relative depths of the features found by the radar survey, we can further understand how these structures were constructed. As you can see from the calculations on the right, the original ground level in Roman times was roughly the same inside and outside the structure, which will be an important part of our analysis of potential sites. All of this leads to a set of criteria with which to judge potential new amphitheatre sites. I used this to look around major Roman settlements in Britain on LiDAR to see if I could find anything that had not been spotted before, and I found 4 of them, which have varying degrees of believability. Number 1 is at North Taunton, Devon. This is a military site, possibly with several phases of different size. To the north of the site is the donut-shaped feature we are looking for. I'm not the first to suggest this is an amphitheatre, but I feel justified in including this here, as I did spot this independently. The rest of the sites, as far as I'm aware, are new discoveries. The earthwork here is built into the side of the hill to the north and is named as Bath Pool on OS maps. This obviously raises the possibility of the site being a pond, but ponds are usually dug out rather than built up. It may have been an amphitheatre that naturally filled up with water, becoming a pond, or was later artificially puddled with clay. A profile of the site makes it difficult to decide whether the centre has been cut or not, as the land around here is not flat. It is, however, the right shape and size for what we are looking for. Site number 2 is at Old Sarum in Dorset. Ignoring the massive Iron Age and later defences of Old Sarum itself, the Roman settlement we are interested in is of course at a river crossing, in this case the River Avon, at a confluence of Roman roads. Nearby, marked by an arrow, is the possible amphitheatre. A profile across the earthwork shows that once again it is on a slight hill, and may even be very slightly cut in the centre, but the positive earthworks are clearly visible on both sides. The size is right too. If we change the light source and the profile to the northwest, things become less clear. There is modern disturbance to be sure, but the banks to the southeast are less clear and the cut in the centre is more clear. So is this an amphitheatre or just a big pit where the spoil has been thrown out on two sides? The feature is very close to the settlement, but it's a relatively minor undefended settlement, at least as far as we know, as it has not been investigated. Site number 3 is at Kenchester in Herefordshire, a Roman town that has not seen much in the way of archaeological work. Unlike at Old Sarum, the defensives of the Roman settlement are very clear. Also clear is our potential amphitheatre, which has suffered the same fate as the example at Aldborough and has ploughing across part of it. Once again this feature is in the side of a hill, which rises to the northwest up to the Roman town. The question is this an amphitheatre, or is it a pit that has been cut into the hill such that the thin slice of the eastern edge of the east side of the hill looks like a bank? It's honestly difficult to tell. It may be that the amphitheatre here was reconstructed as a cut, as they had that option here, unlike at Chichester or Richborough. It's roughly the right size anyway. Site number 4 is at Lake Farm, Wimborne in Dorset. This is a military site that has had geophysics survey by Bournemouth University. It has Roman roads heading to the south, east and northwest. The line of the defences are shown in red, with the arrow pointing to the potential amphitheatre. This feature is actually on the Historic Environment record, but not as an amphitheatre. It's listed as a possible early pond, and it's easy to see why. To the east of it is Merley Pond, which has earth banks at the edge, just like our feature. The LiDAR shows more, however. The pond and the area to the south of it are an old pit. I couldn't find any history on this site, but the geology maps suggest that clay was being extracted here. The perfect place for a pond, and Merley Pond was constructed in the lower part of the extraction pit. Our feature is a bit different though, and I've marked it with red dots on the height profile. It's on the unexcavated hillside above the level of the stream valley below, so the water from the stream to the east would never have reached it. It's pretty clear it's not a pond, but is it an amphitheatre? There is a problem with that. It's 850 metres away from the defended edge of the settlement, although only 140 metres from the projected line of the eastwards Roman road. So those are our 4 sites. How do they match up against the criteria I set? Not bad, but not perfect. I suppose if they were perfect, they would have been spotted before. I found sites that were the right shape and size, but there are other factors which did not match up. They are worthy of further investigation, if nothing else. North Taunton, which has already been spotted, is the most likely candidate. There are still many major Roman cities without a discovered amphitheatre, as they will have been built over. Unfortunately for Paul Whitewick, I did not find one at Winchester, though for a brief moment I thought I had. I was looking over Winchester to see if I could see the shadow of the shape of an amphitheatre under houses. Unfortunately, I did not, but I spotted this to the east. It's the right shape and size, but there are obvious problems. The earthwork is too sharp. It's too far from Winchester. It's not on the historic environment record for such an obvious feature, and it's not on old maps. Most importantly, there is a circular plantation of trees in the middle, and I'm pretty sure the earthwork was associated with that planting, which would have occurred in the early 20th century, along with the construction of the cemetery. I have seen one other example of earthworks associated with tree plantings. Thank you for watching my diversion from Roman roads. I hope you found that interesting, and I'll see you next time.